I did the restoration of this 1997 F250 over the winter of 2014. Truck was about 70,000 miles and pretty rough. The first thing I did was remove the box and starting to disassemble the front end. I removed the old Western plow mount, which wasn't going to be used, and continued to disassemble the front end so I could get the engine out of it. It's a 351 fuel injected engine. The engine was pretty rough. It was pretty rusty. I had actually a leak in the soft plug, broken off spark plugs, broken motor mounts, broken exhaust manifolds. Here's the motor out of the truck. You can see it was pretty nasty. I started disassembling it, pulled the timing cover off. Here's one of the broken spark plugs. I had to use an easy out to get out. Here's the engine upside down. New soft plugs are installed. New oil pump. New water pump and timing chain set. Your new rubber gasket. New rear main seal. Oil pan is rotted out. New oil pan. Here's the timing cover, or the timing chain on the front. And all new gaskets. A fresh coat of paint. Top and bottom. And here I am reassembling with a new cap, rotor, wires, plugs, the whole 9 yards. New exhaust manifolds, new motor mounts, and dropping it back in the painted frame. And reassembling the intake manifold and things like that. I moved on to the bodywork. Here's the passenger side floor of the cab. I ordered sheet metal from Raybuck Auto Parts, raybuck.com. And moving the rocker panel here, removing the rocker, and installing a factory style rocker panel. I also replaced the passenger side door. Here I'm checking the rocker to door clearance. It's important always to have the doors installed and lined up when you're setting rockers and cab corners in place. Here I'm tying the inner cab corner to the rocker panel. And moving on to the floorboard, replace most of the floor pan on the front up where there was rotted there. And here's a tip. I use a slip-on rocker panel to cut up to make the pieces with a factory joint, similar to how Ford was here with the kick up to the door panel on both sides. You can see the front part here. It's an easy way to replicate the factory look. Here's the entire passenger side and primer. And the driver's side was pretty rotten. I needed whole floor pan rocker, and also the cab mount was pretty bad. So I got in there and I had to order a cab mount from Ford, I believe. Or maybe, yeah, I think Ford. Ended up replacing the cab mount and fit the rocker, entire floor pan up to the transmission, up to the four-wheel drive shifter. Getting welded in place here, and same process as the other side, using the slip-on rocker to make the dog leg extension. And I had to make a custom piece here, and tying the inner cab corner in the back in, and some weld through zinc primer. Here the cab corner is installed, and the everything's primered. Here's the cab corner here. And after some body work, I painted it, new white paint, and here's a door, fitting the door up to it. Back to before I put the engine in, I needle scaled and rust-proofed and painted the entire chassis. And I also made a new core support. I found this rust-free 1991-ish core support in the junkyard, and I used a 92 to 97 style core support outer edges so I could run my regular headlights, and grafted the two together because the center piece is the same on both of them. Here it is mocked up, and then I threw on the aftermarket replacement fenders, make sure everything fit right before I finished welding it. And then when everything was good, I painted and undercoated the custom core support, and here it is getting reassembled later on during the reassembly process. And fitted up with the fenders and whatnot. I took the door back off to, after I had the door lined up, I took it off and refit the fenders. I added these factory XLT bucket seats, as well as Herculined the floor with Herculiner bed liner material. The driver's side door I didn't replace, but I did put a new bottom section on it. I made a new inner and outer piece. Here in 16 gauge steel, making the outer skin, and had to do some work to the inner piece. Here I am working on the skin from the outside, tacked in place, and then the lower section, and a little bit of body work and paint, and it's good as new. So after the doors are done, I started to reassemble the front of the truck. I'm lining up the bumper here and the fenders, make sure everything fit correctly before I removed the fenders and painted and undercoated them, both sides. Here's the outer side of the passenger side fender. And installing and checking the gaps, getting everything lined up the way it's supposed to go. At this time I added the factory Alcoa wheels I bought with 255/85 16 tires. There's a Craigslist score. Here I'm putting the nose back together, checking the gaps on the fenders and the hood once again, installing the headlight header and the headlights, and finally the headlight trim and the grille. And then I added the bumper, and I made a custom brush guard that mounts through a hole that was in the bumper from an accident. I cut one on the other side and made this custom little push bar. Here's it a little bit farther along outside next to my 77 Ford. I also added a receiver hitch to the front brush guard. And as you can see in the next picture, there's a flatbed on the back I also made. I'll show that coming up next. So I started with a 1x4 inch channel main rails, laying those out here on the frame, and then added some downriggers and a receiver hitch. And I set this hitch up the same height as my other truck, so I didn't have to I could use the same size ball for my trailer with the same drop. That's why it's set at this level. Here's a perimeter of the flatbed, more 1x4 C-channel. And then the cross pieces are 1x2 channel. And on this truck I'm mounting the spare in the flatbed to cover the hole between the big empty hole between the frame and the cab and the wheel on the passenger side. So here's the most of the floor complete. And then on the rear I added LED trailer lights. Here's some custom made buckets I got at the trailer supply store. And I'm adding stake pockets all the way around for sides and the tailgate. Here's a rear bumper. The mount's right above the receiver hitch. And starting to add some strap steel around the side, the stake pockets, similar to like a semi-trailer, so you can use semi-strap tie-downs on the outside of it. And starting to construct a headache rack out of 1x2 rectangular tubing, 1x2 rectangular tubing. Here's the strap steel finished on the outside of the bed. Custom filler mounts was inset pockets on the driver's side. This truck has two fuel tanks like most of the F-Series trucks do. Some D-rings on the back. Wire mesh added to the headache rack. And these gussets keep the toe board and the headache rack from rattling around. Next is a spare tire mount, which uses 4 bolts to the 8-lug wheel and a bar that sits on the bed of the truck itself and has a pin to locate it. So the weight of the wheel holds it into the flatbed, and then a pin locks the inner side there. So when you want to take it out, you pull the pin and take the whole bracket out, unbolt it from the wheel, and put the spare on. Here I am with a reverse light and tail lights and side marker lights installed, getting some paint on the frame. And also added some LED lights to the headache rack. new front fuel tank, and extending the fuel fillers with some exhaust tubing and some fuel rated hose, which is expensive, by the way. And so here's the front fuel filler and the rear fuel filler. And after that was all done, I painted the entire flatbed, installed pressure treated 2x6 decking on it, and a couple of mud flaps. And when that was all dry, it was time to take the truck for its maiden voyage outside. Here it is, pretty much all done. I ended up painting the rest of the wood black after this, but I owned the truck, put a few miles on it, or put about probably 10-15,000 miles on it for a couple of years, and it works great. It rides good. It's got tons of traction. I put a glass pack on it. It sounded great. And my friend has a farm, and he saw the truck and had to have it. So it's living its life on his farm now, still working every day. So thanks a lot for watching. And this has been the Quick Speed Shop.